everyone. Meredith and I am back for another Power 15 interview with Louis Sorrell of MI Homes. And Louis, you're out of the Twin Cities area. Where exactly are you coming from today?
Correct. We're right now, my community is south of the river. We call it in Prior Lake, a nice little city south of the river called Prior Lake, Minnesota.
I know Prior Lake, Minnesota. Believe it or not, we worked with several builders over the years in that market. And I know Prior Lake to be a very popular, beautiful place for people to build. Pretty hot for new construction, right?
You know, it is. It's always been a nice city because there is a big actual lake. People were building on the lake. But now there's really been a push for the national builders to come in. It was formerly more of a custom builder community. And now you've got really big nationals, i.e., we've got Pulte, Lennar, and MI Homes, D.R. Horton. So we're all there in close proximity, kind of duking it out. So it's wonderful.
So that makes it very competitive.
It does. It does.
Yeah, for our audience we have sales leaders listening, marketing managers, builder owners, everybody in home building, industry types.
Yep.
Tell us about your home building background so they get a feel for what you've done and what you're currently doing.
Absolutely. So in 1999, I was recruited into new construction via a wonderful mentor. And it was one of the largest privately held builders in the state of Minnesota. And we were custom / production. So it was high volume. The market was pretty insane. 1999 through about 2005, 6. So I did that for about 7-8 years. And obviously the market corrected, kind of struggled a little bit to figure out what my next direction was, and then decided I was just going to be one of the top sales agents for a national builder and waved the magic wand. And there you go. About 20 years later, here I am.
And you're with MI Homes now, right?
I am. The MI is probably the third national I've been with. But and just a little background about MI Homes was in Minneapolis was formerly Hans Hagen, who was a really high value custom builder. And the Schottensteins came in from Columbus and purchased Hans Hagen. And now here we are competing with the big boys head to head. So it's great.
Yes. And you were telling me in the pre-interview that the community you're selling in now, you have 3 product lines that you're selling.
I do.
So tell us briefly what those are so our listeners get a feel for that.
So one of the things Hans Hagen kind of crafted and mastered was the slab on grade or patio home we call villa. So it's a main level living with no basement, association maintained patio home, and it's kind of one of our core lineups. So that was always good. We just I blew the scale up with obviously the money from MI Homes. So I sell that. I also sell what we call a Rambler, main level living with a basement. We can build that as a villa or a single family home. And then I sell a 2-story product lineup as well. So there's a lot of meat on the bone there. And yeah, it's a lot of responsibility, but it's very rewarding as well.
Yeah, it is. And one of my favorite things about the Twin City market is that the builders offer, I don't hear in other parts of the country the term Rambler. And it's just one of my favorite terms for a product type. I love it. I think Rambler, that sounds so cool. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I always have to define it. But yeah, it's a kind of a different term.
Sure, I love it. So one of my questions I've been asking sales leaders in these interviews, somebody who's experienced as yourself, you've sold all these different product types, up markets, down markets. I mean, run the gambit, you've done it. When you are having a tough day or a slow market, or it's not just gangbusters as you'd hoped, or whatever, your day is taking a left turn, what keeps you going? How do you keep going?
Well, first, I'm very competitive. I always have been. So initially, it's always outward competitiveness, and I've tried to transmuted that into internal. So I'm always trying to motivate myself and challenge myself. It's funny, I'm an avid golfer, and in golf, we always call it a swing thought. There's a different 100 mechanics to golf. You can't focus on all of them during one round. So it's just a swing thought. So every day I'm trying to put one thing in my head that could be a swing thought for that day. And that pretty much keeps me focused.
Yeah. My son is an avid competitive swimmer. Okay. Now, he's only 12. We're talking, middle school swimming here. But when we were allowed, we haven't gotten to do much of it this year, but in most years, he spends several afternoons a week in the pool swimming. He's really good on butterfly, which is one of the harder ones, right? Backstroke. Yep. And the coaches always tell him, you're competing against yourself.
Correct.
The moment that you stick your head up and look to the left or the right at the lane next to you to see where you are compared to others, you've just taken time off your final time because you've caused drag. If you think about being streamlined in the water, up comes the head, you've just slowed yourself down, literally.
Absolutely.
Physics.
Yeah.
That sounds like what you're saying.
Yeah, it is very similar. When I was taught golf, I was taught that you're never competing against somebody else. You're competing against the course. You're out there to shoot your best round. And once you start putting your attention on somebody else, you're taking it off of your game. So that's really, I'm my greatest competitor in sales as well. Now I'll look up every once in a while, every quarter to see where I'm at. But I'm always keeping my head down and I'm focused on my goals.
That's right. And so sales leaders, as you're listening to this, maybe it's worth taking a second after the interview to get a Post-it note or get your iPad notes app out, get a clean piece of paper, put a line down the middle, compete against self, compete against others, jot down maybe some ways that you're actively causing drag on your swim time by looking left and right. What are those specific activities? And then let's draw a line through those. And then let's list on the other side of the paper, what are some things you really more internal competition that's a little healthier for you, that is more productive. And that could be a good to do, following with what we're doing. So, all right. So here's my next one for you. Sure. It's important when you're competitive and you're in sales and there is a lot of rejection, even in an up market, there's unhappy customers, no matter how good you are, whatever. You need a good bench or cheering squad behind you. Yep. So who's on your bench? Like, who is part of your team that keeps you going?
Yeah, so there's obviously family, but in the professional world, I'm very fortunate to have a wonderful sales manager who was recruited, handpicked. He was one of the Hans Hagen legacy, we call him, folks, who's been with Hans Hagen forever. He was handpicked by my VP of operations, who also handpicked me from another national to the one he was at prior to this, and then recruited me over here as well. I always say I would follow him anywhere. It's rare, I think, in this industry to have somebody that you absolutely adore as management.
True.
But I mean, he is as energy filled, high energy, motivational, yet he's always challenging you. And as I said, I love being challenged, because after doing this for quite a while, what is the challenge?
Yes.
What gets you up in the morning? And it's, you have to have somebody who can challenge you. And he certainly does that to do our best. So I have a pretty healthy bench. Yeah, that backs me.
Yeah. And that, you have to know that. You have to know that sales manager has your back, that they have high expectations with you, that they're direct, that they will give you the feedback when you need it. But at the same time, if it's something stupid or simple or doesn't really matter that much, they've got you. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
I think that's so crucial. To me, it's crucial I've had management, unfortunately, that maybe aren't the most they're not the best people person. I think we are a unique, as salespeople, we're a unique breed. We're confident. We go out and sell, but we're on a level a little bit insecure. We need to be stroked a little bit, and we need to be cared about. And the thing is, when your sales force feels and understands and knows that they care about you, you will do anything for them.
Yes.
And so I've followed my bench.
It's true.
This is the third builder, So yeah, I'm very, very fortunate. Indeed.
Yeah. And I'll give a little plug here. I just finished at one of the other Power 15 interviews. If you're listening to this one and you haven't had a chance yet, look in the vault for the one I just did with Greg Lee. Greg is a sales person like yourself that was promoted in the past year to sales leadership. And we spent most of his time, just like with you now, most of his interview talking about how he's investing in his team, one person at the time, to give them that support and doing it in person as much as COVID allows, because he's trying to become that kind of mentor boss figure that you're talking about, that you would follow into the fire, right? Game of Thrones style, no matter what happens.
And when you have that, okay, and I've learned this through the years, when you don't have that, it's fair weather. When the market's great, well, we're all here for you. But when the market slows, do you have that team that will go to war with you? And when you have that, you're pretty much invincible. If there's a possible positive outcome, you're going to find it. So that's the teams I'm interested in being on, and I'm very fortunate to be on the team I am. So
and part of the reason you're on it though is because of your performance over the years. You're consistent, reliable, you've got a good attitude, like you have all the components that make it pretty easy to mentor and supervise you. Now, I'm sure your boss could probably give us a few little secrets of annoying things. So like we all could. We adore our spouses, but yet there are little things, but for the most part, I bet you're pretty easy to manage in general.
I'd like to think so. I'm pretty high energy, and I get up with a skip in my step. I always tell my job supervisor, I said, is there ever a day I don't walk into the model singing? If I'm not singing, then it might be a rough day. But
something is wrong, right? I have a really good, one of my best girlfriends, for whatever reason, she has an aversion to salads. And we have a running joke that if you ever see her eating a salad, send for help, right? So if you show up without singing in your out loud, send for help.
Correct. Hit the SOS button.
Now we didn't talk about this beforehand, so hopefully you don't mind me. But is there something you do in prep coming in so you kind of start off that in that good way? Like, do you have a routine or something?
I did. I do, and I continue to. I was taught early on that you have to cage your mind. You have to feed your mind. You have to protect your mind, because there's so many negative outside influence now more than ever. And so I'm always feeding my mind with audiobooks. It goes along with my swing thought. I'm always listening to some sort of podcast, just something to give me a piece that day. And so that's over the years I have honed that. I rarely watch network television. I rarely watch the news, especially with all of the access we have now via YouTube and other internet functions. I'm just feeding my mind what I want, and I want it to be something positive. I want to see the world in a positive light. I don't want to carry a bag of negativity with me every day. So it's just about deliberately feeding my mind.
I see so many people on social media mostly who are clearly internalizing way too much of the conflict and the angst and the negativity. And it's, you just want to, it's not really your place, and I would never, but I just kind of want to reach out and like put an arm around and just say, hey, do you realize
Yeah.
your tone over the past few months or year, whatever it is so different. You're internalizing too much of this. And
Yeah.
when you start doing that, and I can say this because I have been there, it begins to change you. And when we let these outside things change who we are, oh boy, have we done ourselves a disservice.
Yeah, I mean, energy is transferable. It is. The law of attraction says what you put your attention on, you draw into your world. So in knowing that, I want to be very deliberate about, you're not aloof to what's going on.
No,
but it
of
doesn't
course.
have to dictate my daily energy.
And I find how much of it you take in every day is how, to the degree to which it gets internalized.
Correct.
I would say for a takeaway for you, those that are listening, if you haven't read or listened to Atomic Habits, I believe the author is James Clear, but Atomic Habits, New York Times bestseller a couple years back. You can't miss it. It's anywhere you want to look for it, both audio, book, paperback, Kindle, all of it. You can take that. I took that book and it helped me develop a morning routine. And it's not that I get to do it every day. Hey, I'm a busy working mom of a 12-year-old and 3 dogs and a great husband. Like every morning isn't a perfect routine, but it is set up for success to the best I can.
Yeah.
Makes a huge difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So here's one that you chose to answer that I think shows a lot of courage and maturity on your part, was a professional failure. Something that you've encountered that you were like, wish I did that different, or it is what it is, but here's what I learned.
Well, it skirts real estate, of course. I built a brand new house in, I think it was 2004, 2005. I was really kind of doubling down on real estate, selling real estate, bought real estate.
Well, this is starting to sound very familiar.
And I just really wasn't diverse. I wasn't diversified. I was paying it forward in the wrong sense, that I was in debt. I had no savings. I was banking on making 10% on my money. And lo and behold, they don't really teach that in many books about what happens when everything crashes. So it did crash. I crumbled and I had to rebuild myself from scratch, which I say is the greatest gift I was ever given, because it allowed me to get off of the hamster's wheel and craft my life the way I wanted to live it. So now I'm very diversified. I did just close on a new construction home. I still sell real estate, but even with this COVID hitting, what I realized was, wow, I'm not panicked. I'm not scrambling. I'm diversified. I'm pretty liquid. And so I think I learned a lot from that, thank God.
Well, and Louis, I did exactly the same thing. That would have been exactly my answer. We had a new home. During that time, we bought 4 more investment properties in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah.
Including one at the beach, that were all financed on top of each other. Yeah, you can imagine how that turned out. By 2010, it was wipe the slate clean.
Yep.
It was humiliating to me. I'm not saying you should have felt that way. I felt it. I was embarrassed. It was difficult. But I'm telling you what, right now, when this came, I have 0 debt. I live a life of no debt, no credit cards. I have a new construction home that I built and live in now for about a year. Yes, I was much more prepared this time around, and I'm still in the industry just like you are. So it's an interesting, I bet you we are not the only 2 that did all that.
I know a handful of others.
But being brave enough to talk about it and being vulnerable about it, I think is really important, because if you're listening and somehow through this COVID thing, you've not experienced a boom in your particular market or product line or builder, and you do find yourself struggling and feeling like I've made some mistakes, just hear us that this too, it will pass. You may need to make some changes and hard choices, but but you can do it. You can do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you live and learn, and I'm big on transmutation and alchemy, if you will, in
That's
taking the negative
cool.
and turning it into a positive. So, you know,
Yeah.
the twist on that is in life, you actually welcome some of these hard times
Mm,
because it's an opportunity to
it
transmute it.
is.
You know, because if again, back to the competitive nature I have, you know, you look in the mirror and say, really, are you that tough? Are you really that
Yeah.
competitive? Can you turn this around? And boy, you
Yes.
turn that around a few times,
Y-
life really can't throw anything at you that you're not willing to take care of.
It's true.
You know,
And it really is just called life. Like,
yeah,
we were never promised it to be perfect or smooth.
yeah,
There are going to be financial challenges, there are health challenges, there are relationship challenges. All of these things come along in various forms. And honestly, if at this point, I think going through the pandemic, we could all have a better perspective that if you have your health,
yeah,
you've
absolutely.
really got everything,
Yeah, boy, it's really put
right?
into perspective. I couldn't agree more. I've learned a lot from COVID as well. So
Yeah.
taking that situation, internalizing it a little bit,
Yeah.
and trying to find some nuggets out of it. You know,
Yeah.
so.
And
Mhm.
that's the key. So, as we wrap up and kind of
Mhm.
think forward,
Yep.
so here we are in October recording this. Our summit's happening in November. And then, of course, we're going to everybody will kind of disengage for holidays. And then we'll be back
Mhm.
first quarter. Like, what's on the horizon for you, for us as an industry? What are some challenges you think are coming that we need to be thinking ahead? Maybe they won't happen, but if they do, we're prepared.
Yeah. Well, first off, I'm incredibly optimistic. I mean, there's a lack of inventory in the market. Due to the crashes, a couple of the crashes that have happened, obviously a lot of the small players are gone, which has created a vacuum for the national builders to come in. So our market share is huge. Interest rates are incredibly low. And through my understanding, what I've heard, the Fed isn't going to raise rates for some years. And
Nope.
every buyer, probably most importantly right now, is the difference between 2005, 8, and now is every buyer out there is really qualified. Nobody out there has a mortgage that shouldn't have a mortgage.
Nope.
So there's a lot of stability in the market. I just don't see any obstacles in the immediate horizon that are going to deflate anything that's happened in a new construction. I know we can't keep up right now, literally cannot keep up.
Yes.
I'm having a record year, and we have a lot more communities coming on. So I'm very optimistic about it. I mean, even the existing market's telling you with multiple offers on homes that I think the short term looks pretty bright.
And don't you think that in that, with that bright possibility, because you're right. Okay, before I ask the question, I think I want to back up and say you're right, because the fundamentals of now are completely different than
Absolutely.
last time. And I think now we understand how to read a situation and which fundamentals really matter.
Yeah.
And so, with those being so good for us in housing and so strong, and it being bright, I mean, I think that my question then is, the real challenge is managing the
Yeah.
onslaught, the avalanche, and doing it in a way where we don't become complacent,
Yeah.
arrogant, uh, uh, where we don't value every single
Here, here.
contract and buyer, because
Yep.
I saw that in the lead up to the
Yes. Yep.
crash. I saw it in our builder owners. I saw
Yep.
it in our salespeople, in our marketing people. All of us, we got a little bit too big for
Yep.
our britches.
Yep. And that, you know, that's a great segue, and I do agree with that because I heard myself saying that the other day. We're so busy. We're trying to manage this backlog, and we have a tendency, if we're not deliberate, to prejudge when somebody comes in. Do they really look like buyers? Do I really want to waste my time? But that's when you have to, you know, shift immediately. And the surprise, not surprise, but it's inevitable that the people you write off mentally, when you finally
Every
engage,
time.
they're great buyers and they wind up buying a home.
The
So
biggest home with the most upgrades in it.
So you're your greatest enemy in that everybody that walks through that door deserves your full attention, and they deserve to be treated as a buyer until otherwise notified, right?
Yeah.
And right, because we don't want to become complacent. We don't want to become hoity-toity and full of ourselves. We want to be compassionate and be, those agents who will get off their seat. They'll go out and talk. They'll engage and make that client feel comfortable. So
feel comfortable. Agreed. And I have no doubt in my mind that you absolutely do that with everybody. Thank you so much. We have a mutual friend in Carrie Mulcrone.
Love her.
Yes, you worked with her. She was your sales manager at that private builder when you got started, right?
She was, and was just an absolute wonderful mentor as well. I always have one thing that sticks in my mind, because I started a community, and this is 1999, 2000, did really well, and was roaming through the office one day, and I said, well, Carrie, what am I going to do now? I mean, what should I do now? And she kind of looked at me sternly. She says, you know what, Louis? Anybody can scrape sales off of the top. Anybody can scrape the cream off of the top. But how hard are you willing to go get the sales? And it was just kind of one of my first little challenges to say, maybe there's more I could do on a daily basis. Maybe I could work harder. But yeah, Carrie's absolutely wonderful, and I adore her. Yeah.
Well, over the years, she's become a very close personal friend. I call her my sister from another mother, but also a colleague. We work on a lot of projects together. And, I felt 1000% confident when I asked her, give me some faces, some fresh voices of experience. You've been in this a long time, but not necessarily highlighted or showcased. I said, who do you know? And she said, Louis Sorrell from MI Homes. He's your guy. So there you go. Louis, thank you for your warmth, your vulnerability, your expertise. You made an investment in the industry today to help everyone else be as successful as you've been. And for that, I am very, very thankful.
Well, I'm very appreciative as well. Thank you, Meredith, and up with everything you're building as well.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, have a great rest of your day. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and check out one of our next interviews in the library. Thanks.